idea of that is, this is the factoids that I said overall, okay? Which one is associated with, urinary infection? Which one is inherited? Which one is the most common? Just those basic factoids. Again, multiple choice, I'll have all those guys there. Most common, calcium oxalate. You have to identify that, right? So that's pretty easy. This idea of this is really sort of already there. I make this sound a lot more complicated than it is. You don't have to really go beyond that, okay? As far as this goes, so I didn't discuss this, okay, except on 24. Okay, again, for silver nitrate question, I'll be saying again just exactly what we just talked about. You added 6 drops. What is the milligram per 100 mil? That would be like, these are like a point apiece. And again, you're doing that by multiplying at 61. And then what is the milli equivalent? If you know that, you'll multiply by 3.55, and you'll see it in a multiple choice answer. For the multiple choice ones, I try to say, well, what if you did this? So the odds are, if you get the right answer, you're going to know it's the right answer. So all those are going to be multiple choice, okay? But you are going to be doing the math, okay? Now, the different functions of the elements of the nephron, actually, because that's sort of part, if you read the introduction to the lab, that literally is exactly like you're studying for the other test, okay? So overall, everyone, again, what is proximal tubule? Reabsorption, okay? Again, so kind of just reviewing that. Descending, you're reabsorbing water. Ascending, you're pumping out salts. On the collecting duct, it's under hormonal control. That type of question, multiple choice type thing too. Just reminding us, because it is part of the lab. I just didn't do it again. Okay, does anyone know what osmotic diuresis is? Look it up. Okay, or look it in the lab. It actually says it. I don't need to tell you that. We know what glucosuria is. Okay, so on this, I want to go over 23, and then we can kind of look back at some of the things that we are, or at least point to some things and see what you want me to explain. So, explain how alcohol, dehydration, overhydration, excessive salt ingestion will affect urine composition, but really thinking of specific gravity and output. The idea of this is the following. In fact, we can quickly kind of just draw our famous nephron. Let's just kind of do it. And we do sort of know the same. So remember overall, actually just remember the numbers too. We're going to start with 300. What are we going to have at the end of the proximal tubule?
300.
300. If we're in the long loops family, what's on the bottom? Correct, 1200. 100, 50,
And then this one 50 to
50 to 1200. So when I'm looking at, now we're talking about specific gravity / urine output, you just think osmolarity. I mean, you really are correlating to that, right? The higher the osmolarity, the higher the specific gravity, okay? So again, now we're just playing the same sort of game, overall when we're looking at it. So we have consumption of alcohol. We have, what else do I have? Dehydration, I can do overhydration. We can do dehydration though, and salt. So we'll just do dehydration. So all we're really saying is, just like we do in the other part of the class too, what is that going to do to the concentration of the urine? And does that mean we're going to urinate more or less, the volume, right? Consumption of alcohol. Okay, what is alcohol?
Antidiuretic.
It's an antidiuretic. So the idea is, if it's antidiuretic, we all kind of know this. So is this going to make it more concentrated or more dilute?
More dilute.
And it's low volume or high volume?
Low volume.
Okay, so high volume, right? You're peeing a lot. So alcohol, the idea is you're going to have a high volume of more dilute. Okay, so what I'm saying, what does it do to specific gravity? Is if we go in this direction, does that mean it's increasing or decreasing?
Decreasing.
Decreasing. Specific gravity, you just want to equate with the osmolarity, basically. Yeah, because the more specific gravity, the higher the osmolarity. If you're dehydrated, okay, we do hydrated. Dehydrated, what's going to happen to the concentration of the urine? Okay, you're dehydrated, we're going to reabsorb more water, right? We're going to increase ADH to absorb water. So what is that going to mean? We're going to make it a smaller volume of concentrated urine. So if we're using the word specific gravity, is it going up or down? Higher concentration, basically, again, all we're doing with what we've added today is basically equating that, specific gravity to the idea of the urine osmolarity, right? That's the only difference here. So as you go this direction, that means it's a higher concentration, higher specific gravity. Okay? That's all that's being. Anything we're doing in which you're going to get very, very concentrated urine, low volume, means it's higher specific activity, right? I mean, specific gravity. That's all we're equating. If it's really dilute, okay, we saw it today, very dilute, low specific gravity. So all we're doing in that question with these things is basically doing the same thing we would do in the lecture part of it, basically seeing how these conditions will affect the urine. The only now is that we're using specific gravity as a concentration of it. Okay? Low concentration, low specific gravity, high concentration, high specific gravity.
So you're saying alcohol makes your urine more dilute?
It will make it more dilute. You will pee out salt, but you're going to pee out a lot more water because it's an antidiuretic. Remember, a diuretic, it's a diuretic, right? The idea of a diuretic is you're going to get rid of salt, but you also are dehydrating. You're going to get rid of more water, so it's more dilute than that. Okay, that's all that is. Okay? Boom, we have today. If you look at this other, and we'll kind of glance through it, all we have, and I can kind of look at it a second here, and then we'll kind of just quickly do some and then see what you want to do. Let's view as a student, because I got all this stuff, extra stuff. So all we are at, where's my lab? This is it, right? Because the student sees it. So none of that, we've already done all that. So here are the lab study questions that I just opened up. So we have basically and we'll look at the questions on this. We have that first sort of one in which we sort of did some of the hematocrit, stuff like that, right? I'm going to show what you need to know on that as well. Don't really have to do that one. Then we have the blood typing one. As I said, that's the one that has a lot of questions and answers, and I can review for us that if you want. So there's that. Then there's the respiratory lab. Again, that had a lot of math and questions. I have answers, questions, answers there. If you want me, I can go over that again. And then here's the urinalysis already. So the only other one was the respiration one we did, I guess, last week. And really, the questions you'll see be like, is this going to, change the color to phenolphthalein quicker or not as quick, that type of thing. We'll look at it, but that's exactly. Exercise, quicker, holding your breath quicker, buffer slower, and that's just, really those questions would be, increase the time or decrease time. They'll actually be A and B on that. We can look at that, that's pretty easy. But if you go to the first one, okay, look at the two things. We'll look at the lab exam study questions. Okay, so if you look at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and really that's all we did for that one overall. That's sort of the first one. So when I say define hematocrit, again, I don't put definitions on this, but the idea what I'll give, I'll show that kind of example, is I'm not going to have us walk around looking at a hematocrit tube. They break and stuff, it's sort of ridiculous. I'll just give you values. I'll basically, I won't have a picture, but I'll basically, again, the whole idea of hematocrit is basically, this is going to be better for us, the percentage of red blood cells. Okay, so I'll give you different heights. I'll basically say, that the height of, the red blood cell is portion is 5 centimeters, maybe I'll say the total from the plasma down is 10 centimeters. And I want to know what the hematocrit is. Again, all you will do obviously 5 divided by 10 times 100 for that equals 50%. So I'll give you those values. You just have to realize that's what it is, right? It's a percentage of red blood cells, and the answer will be 50%. It will be multiple choice. I try to make us do. I try to think of anything you could potentially do wrong to make different answers.
So if it was like 6 centimeters, then it would be 60%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if I made this only 9, you still have to do whatever you
Divided by
like.
9.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just whatever these heights are, it's going to be this over the total height. Okay. Or I might say, well, from this to this is 5 centimeters, so you realize that's like 10, whatever it is. That's all that question is going to be. Okay. So it says define because it's just how you write these things, but you're just going to have to be able to do it. Okay. So the next question. So this one. So this one's important. Okay. The 2 and 3. Okay, and I said this way back when, but the idea is you're going to have to memorize sort of that page or these equations. So if you go to that lab, so again, you're not going to have to basically, you're not going to have to count or actually do the hematoglometer, whatever. Can't really talk today. This page, okay, that I talked about, okay, that I'm going to give you values. I will give you the hematocrit, the red blood cell count, the hemoglobin. I'm going to give you those 3 values. Okay? You're going to have to calculate MCV. Okay? By putting them, so you're going to have to memorize these equations for that test, right? Again, and to remind you, and then you're going to have to, and I'm going to give you the ranges though. So the idea is, again, this is your mean volume. You're going to put hematocrit times 10 to the 7th over red blood cell count. Basically, again, I'll have it, whatever it is. It's 5 million, 6 million. Just remember, okay, for this and that, when it says hematocrit percentage, basically, if it's 50%, I tell you your hematocrit, you put 50. You don't change it to 0.5, okay? Because that's sort of how this equation is. If the hematocrit was 50%, you would write 50 times 10 to the 7th times 10 to the 7th divided by whatever blood cell count I gave, okay? And it will give you a value, and I will give you the value range, and if it's in between that, fine. But why make it in between? I'm going to make it too high or too low, and that comes to the next question. You have to look. I don't have this thing. You look at that top paragraph. You're going to have to remember. Okay. When you look at that one, we can kind of look at it right now. If you have, it says large or small, size, cost of production, okay. So iron deficiency is going to be too small, okay? Basically, the folic acid and vitamin B12, too big. So you got to remember that, okay? So
too low.
Too low or too high. One says what it is. They're both anemia. It depends on if it's too low, too high. It says what the problem actually is, okay? Again, you kind of just read up the folic acid, vitamin B12. Those are going to be too large. If it's below this number, it's going to be iron deficiency. So, got to know that. Okay? You're going to have to calculate from those 3 MCHC. Again, I give you those values. That's going to be the hemoglobin or hematocrit. I'll give you what averages are. If those are abnormal, it means you have a combination, as it says here. You have a combination. Remember, it's going to be multiple choice, but basically you have deficiency in both, because you actually have. The size doesn't change, but your hemoglobin content will. So you have iron and vitamin B12. So that's like 3 questions probably in a row. I'll give you those values. You're going to have to calculate MCV. You're going to have to calculate MCHC, and then the following question will be, what is with this patient? I'll say it better. It'll be normal, anemia due to this, anemia due to that, anemia due to both. Okay, those are the only possibilities. So but that is the questions. Okay, so again, there's no real. That's actually just what you have to know. Okay, but you got to memorize those, obviously. Okay, those 2 equations, and you got to remember which is which as far as higher flow. That's that. You go to. Let's look at it again. Let's go to where we are. So everybody see we got 1, 2, and 3. That's what that means. Okay, the lab, part of the lab we didn't do, but I said you needed to know this, the difference between leukocytosis and leukopenia. When we go back to this, again, this was like none of this, you didn't do any of this. This was the white blood cell count, and that first paragraph talks about leukocytosis and leukopenia. Okay, look at that. Remember it. You'll know multiple choice. Remember, all these are multiple choice. So you know, it's not like you have to write a sentence on it. One's too high, too many. One's too small. That's all. All that basically says. So that's that. So that's that lab. Okay. Boom. If we go to so again, I'm not going to repeat this, but this should be in your lecture. This is the only thing we did from that differential white blood cell count. If you remember, I basically showed pictures of these and put, do you ever remember me doing that? I have those two characteristics. Like if we show, because I'm not going to necessarily rewrite those. Let's look at these. So these will, again, just like the crystals I mentioned, there'll be a couple crystals and there'll be a couple of these white blood cells that are at the top. And I'll have all these things to identify. I'll give all 5 of these choices, multiple choice. Again, the whole idea is these are the 3 granulated ones. These are the 2 agranular. So that's a factoid. And go back and look at the notes. The neutrophils were the most abundant. Okay, lymphocytes, basically antibodies. Monocytes became macrophages. I don't want to rewrite the notes for you, they're literally there. But to remind you of this, what I'm going to put on. Again, neutrophils, all 3 of these actually are multilobular nuclei, but these guys are hard to see, basophils and eosinophils. So I'm not going to put those on because I can't, as I said, I can't even really identify those except for if I look at this and I won't memorize it. But I sure can tell neutrophils. And again, if you look at this neutrophil, kind of looks like this, I ain't giving you that. I'm giving you one of these pups that have 3 or 4 or 5 lobules. That's a neutrophil. Okay? Most abundant, blood scavenger, those would be the social associated with it. You might have to know what eosinophils and basophils do, okay? You know, allergic reaction, parasite specialist. You'll see these in your notes. But the other 2, so I won't give those. But lymphocytes and monocytes, they are agranular. Again, the idea is these are involved in antibody, again, T cells. These become macrophages. These are the tissue scavengers. Those are some of the factoids. But how are you going to identify these? Again, the idea is they have a single nuclei, but there's, you know, look at these weird shapes. Sometimes they look like this, right? The idea of a lymphocyte will look like this middle one. It will have this huge circular nuclei, very little cytoplasm. Okay, the monocyte, which monocyte do I like? Kidney. Look at that baby, it looks like a kidney. So if I give you a monocyte, it'll look like a kidney, okay? I'm not gonna give one of those other ones. Again, I'm not a histology expert, to say the least. I don't expect you to be, but since I'm telling you the possibility, it's only gonna be these 3. Again, I'll have one that looks like that, neutrophil. If I have a lymphocyte, it'll look like this. If I have a monocyte, it will look like that. Good? Okay, we're good, right? So, the big guys are this, okay? So the blood typing, okay, which are 6, 7, 8, and then the lung stuff, which goes basically at least to there, and then this came from the next few came from the lab where we're breathing in the phenolphthalein and talking about bases and acids, etc. So those are big things. So do we want to? I don't know. We could review the whole blood type thing starting from the beginning or not. respiratory problems, again, they're there as well, we can do that or not. And besides that, not much, I mean, there's not much else in a sense, unless there's specific questions there. So, I know what we want.
Blood type.
So, whole blood type thing? Okay? So, let's, so the blood type will probably be a third of the test. Okay? And so I'm gonna put a blue thing up here for kind of, so, as far as the generalized problem is, and I'll just make one up, again, we'll kind of do how to do it. I'll basically start with that the results of, Mike's blood test, or whatever you want to call it, where that, let's say, the A and B wells agglutinated, but the RH well remained clear. Okay? That's what I might start out with. And from that, you're going to see, and I'll practice it, you get a series of multiple choice questions. And would be basically in the sense of, what is Mike's blood type? But these are multiple choice. Okay? What antigens are on the surface of the cells? What antibodies? So it's a series of questions, multiple choice with like a point each. What antibodies are in my serum? What blood can Mike receive? Who can receive Mike's blood? All multiple choice. And there'll be at least 2 of these. So we're talking 50 points. There's going to be at least 10, really ultimately 12 out of 50 points, 25% will be on the blood typing for sure. Okay? And the thing with that, and I'll go through to make sure we understand how to do this, if you get this wrong, you probably get all of these wrong. Don't get this wrong. Don't get any of it wrong. But it's like you really have to practice with blood typing. Again, not only do I have problems there, but you can literally look up practice blood typing, okay, online, and there's like games. I mean, there's plenty of ways to practice it. Okay? So, how I approach that problem is reminding us of maybe you don't have to do it this way, of course, but I sort of make my chart to really make sure we understand sort of how to get most of these, and really almost all, but before we go from that, which we will, let's just do the chart, okay? Again, if I were practicing this and I wasn't that comfortable with this, I would just make this again, in which I basically talk about what are on the cells. Let's see if we can semi-do this together. And then basically what antibodies are in the serum. And while we're at it, same thing. For the RH. So, what are on cells? Antigens, right? That's what antibodies are going to react to. So I'm going to draw cells here. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom. Cells. Serum. So antibodies are in the serum. Antigens are in the cell. Your blood type is based on what do you have on your cell. So what are we going to make here? Let's make an A. Let's make a B. Let's make an A and a B, and we'll put nothing on. So without the RH factor, do we know the blood type's based upon this? We can fill this. Can everybody sort of feel like we can fill this chart out? Like, what blood type is basically on this person here?
Type A.
Okay, this one,
Type B.
this one,
Type A.
and finally, O. Okay, so we'll get how to go from there to here, but right now, you know what blood type is for that. Okay, now what antigens are on the surface? These represent antigens. Okay, if you're type A, we won't go into RH yet. You have A antigen, B antigen, all that. Okay, so now let's get the idea of these antibodies. Remember, anti-A and anti-B are natural antibodies, which means you don't have to be exposed. You're always going to have the antibody of choice, so to speak. And so, if you're type A blood, you have the antigen. What antibodies? Ignoring RH at the moment, what antibodies do you have?
Anti-B.
Anti-B. These are natural antibodies. You don't need to be exposed. Okay? You don't want to see anything that has basically B on it, or you will agglutinate actually in your body, not in that little plate. Okay? If you're type B, what antibody?
Anti-A.
Anti-A. If you're type AB,
No antibody or antigen.
don't have either of those. If you're type O,
Type A.
anti-A and anti-B. So everybody, I don't want to just be talking, everybody see how, again, to sort of frame this, especially if you're got a lot in your head, you can automatically start to do this just on your paper potentially. This has anti-A and anti-B. This is the antigen, you're RH positive. Otherwise you don't, you're RH negative. Okay, antibodies. If you're RH positive, do you ever have anti-RH antibodies?
No.
No, ever, never. Okay, you're not going to ever make an antibody against yourself. Okay, so you're never going to have an anti-RH antibody. If you're RH negative, do you automatically have it?
No.
No, you need to be exposed, okay? So if you're not, because this is like normal antigen. So the idea is if you're RH negative, you definitely don't want RH positive blood, but I'll put in parentheses again, you could potentially, if you're exposed, have anti-RH. Okay? So let's drop back, okay? So if you look at this, well, first of all, we're going to have to basically name that person's blood type from that agglutination. That's what I want to do now. And then we can start to look at this, okay? Because we have a chart to help us on that. So, again, idea is this. Let's go ahead and draw this out. I'm not going to give you some blood plate or like this, but I want to draw it out for us. And remember, you're putting the antibodies in these wells. So ultimately, you would put anti-A, anti-B, and anti-RH. And by what I've just said, I'm going to have these wells agglutinate, agglutination, but not the anti-RH. So from that information, that was the information I gave, you should be able to determine this person's blood type. And what is that blood type?
AB negative.
AB negative. Does everybody have that now? This is them showing you, this is like a probe for what's on your cell. Whatever reacts means that was on the cell. So A reacted to that, B reacted to that. There was no RH on there, so that remained clear. Whatever that is, whatever agglutenates, you put on this, that represents what your cell is.
Just to clarify that I'm understanding, right? The glue just means that it had those like pieces moving around in it when we tested it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
right. Instead of just staying where it could but clear, it all form pieces and form like a blob, or else those little particles being RH. That's what glutamate does. So everybody has that. If you don't have that, you do the opposite. Okay, because you're just thinking that's the opposite of that from that. It's not, because you're literally putting the antibody here. You're seeing what attaches. Whatever agglutinates, put on the surface. Whatever's on the surface, that is your blood type. Okay, do that right, or else everything else can go afoul really quickly. All right. So actually, we know this person's blood type, so we can kind of do it. It is AB negative. So What antigens are on the surface?
No.
A
Oh.
and B, right? That's the antigens. That's what's on the surface.
I believe so.
Everybody see that? Okay. What antibodies are in the serum? Well, let's kind of look over here. Okay. And so I don't see any here. Okay. If I have one that's only one answer and says Rh positive, okay, or anti-Rh, could it be? Well, if that person was exposed, okay, but I'm gonna make it where there's only one right answer. So either it's gonna be none, but an answer could be anti-Rh if there's no other answer that applies, okay? You know what I'm saying? The idea is, you know, it doesn't have it, so it could be none, but I could have, if I have a choice between none and one that has anti-Rh, that won't happen, okay, because I don't want to do that. So, but the idea of that, it could be either none, okay, or it could be that the person does have anti-Rh. But only one of those two possibilities will be in your multiple choice. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Okay, if they've never been exposed, they have no antibodies. If they've been exposed, they might have anti-Rh. They definitely don't have that. So again, you know, and right now I can put none, pretend it wasn't exposed. But you'll see which answer it is. Okay, so now how to do this again. So this person is AB negative. So remember, we can do other ones, you know, as well. Remember this idea when you're talking about who am I doing first, receiving or what antibody, what blood can Mike receive? Remember, all you're receiving or giving, so to speak, is cells. Okay, you don't want a reaction between your cells and whatever antibodies you have. So, ooh, I got a semi-good person here. So, and so I'm going to do that. Okay. In fact, I'll do that first because I do separately overall. So here is Mike, okay, which isn't me, but we figured out it was AB negative. And yeah, we'll do this first. So before I do the plus minus, okay, this is just the way I do it. I make sure I know what major blood types, and then I come to figure out, you know, if it's, you know, plus minus I get. So the idea is, here's Mike. All Mike cares about is he going to react, he or she, I guess it's Mike, is he going to react to any of these blood cells coming in? And so basically, can Mike receive A?
Yeah.
Sure. B,
Yeah.
AB, I mean, I just made that up at that point, or O. So we already know he can receive A, I'll just do it this way, A, B, and O. But, again, you can do things differently. So I do that first, but now I'm looking at plus minus idea. So if you remember, if you're plus, you can receive either, because you're never going to make an antibody, right? If you're Rh plus, you're never going to make an antibody. You can receive Rh positive, Rh negative. But if you're Rh negative, okay, do you want those positives?
Mm-mm.
So that means that Mike can receive all the negatives, but he can't receive A positive or B positive, AB positive, O positive, or potentially he could have a reaction. So AB negative is not the universal recipient. Who's the universal recipient?
AB positive.
AB positive, because positive can receive both. Okay? So we have that down for Mike on this problem. So I'm gonna write that here, why not do it? And you'll see these are multiple choice, right? I have all these different mints on those two. But so A negative, B negative, AB negative, and O negative. Okay. So now it's who can receive Mike's blood? Okay. So who can receive? So this is Mike's blood. Okay. Here is Mike. So I always bend down. You can bend down in your chair. I mean, that's just how I am. So remember, each of these blood groups, you know, A, B, you know, are looking at what cell is coming their way, and they do not want it to react, right? They don't want a reaction here. And this is Mike's blood. So if you're type A, do you want Mike's blood coming in at you?
No.
Boom. B would react. Bad news. If you're type B, do you want Mike's blood coming in?
No.
No, that would react. Okay, if you're type AB, can you take that in?
Okay.
Sure. You got no antibodies. So AB can receive. Okay. If you're type O, can you receive it?
No.
No. So we know it's only AB, okay? Now the idea is, where are we? That, and again, you can do it different ways. The idea though is mine's AB negative, okay, right? So, so there's nothing on there. So again, just look at the two possibilities, okay? AB negative, AB positive. See if both. So if you're AB negative, can you receive negative blood?
Yes.
Sure. If you're AB positive, can you receive negative blood?
Yes.
Yes. You can receive both, right? And this is why that part you gotta like practice in your head, right? Could kind of get it. But the idea, negative blood, I mean, you can receive negative blood no matter what, right? If you're positive or negative. So the real answer, who can receive, is basically AB negative, AB positive, okay? Because again, negative can receive negative, okay, no problem, it just can't receive positive, and AB positive can receive both. Okay? If you were AB, if Mike was AB positive, only positive could receive it, negative wouldn't. So that's how you would answer that question. And there's gonna be at least two of those, okay? In which you're gonna go from here to there. Really, these 5 questions, boom, 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 boom. Does that make sense? Yeah? Are we talking about pregnant mom now? Moving on, yes? Okay. So again, at least 10 points will be on doing a couple of those things like that. And then at least a few points also on, doesn't matter. I mean, I can put this down here. There's the kidney. Let's go through pregnant mom. Now, this takes us now through like half the course, half the test almost already once we do this, from the upper and lower, and this, actually probably most of it. All right, so let me just do pregnant mom and see if that rings a bell with you guys. Sorry, she's not feeling that happy. Should have kept, we could yell at them. Not sure which way to do it. Kind of want to potentially see this. Yeah, I'll be able to put it back up. So all these still are multiple choice. They'll be in that format. So again, let me get pregnant mom here again. With her little claws here. With baby. Baby number 1, here's mom. So again, the problem we have to deal with pregnant mom is, just to kind of look at this, luckily, none of these antibodies, anti-A, anti-B, can cross from the mother to the child, during pregnancy, or else it'd be really complicated to have a baby. You have to really like look at the blood typing. But RH, anti-RH can cross the placental barrier. And so if the baby's got RH positive, basically cells, that antibody could basically attack and give it that erythroblastosis fetalis, basically destroys the blood cells. So with that in mind, this is this idea. And we can put it a couple ways. First of all, if the mom is RH positive, never a problem. She doesn't care if the she cares about her baby, but she doesn't care if it's RH positive or RH negative. She will never make antibodies, doesn't matter. The baby doesn't make these antibodies to attack the mother no matter what. Okay, that doesn't happen there. So it's not a problem. So our problem is this, okay, our issue is this. You have an RH negative mom, and then basically again a RH positive baby. Okay, so father of the baby was RH positive. This person is RH positive. Okay. Now, during this first pregnancy, assuming she didn't get a bad transfusion or something and have antibodies, etc., she does not have anti-RH. So this baby's like no problem. Okay, mom doesn't have an anti-RH. I'm pretty good. She won't develop anti-RH antibodies unless she's exposed to cells which have RH positive like baby cells. And again, blood is not crossing the placental barrier, but she'll be exposed normally at birth. And so at birth, she might be exposed to these little baby cells that have RH factor. Once she's exposed to that, now she will have basically an immune reaction, then she will make anti-RH antibodies. Okay? So again, this is sort of the first pregnancy. Again, baby number one, which is baby number one, is happy. Okay? Wasn't affected, right? You know, run through birth, and she didn't have any antibodies, but now she's exposed and she's got memory cells. So any subsequent baby to that, so if you have baby number two, those antibodies she has will cross and start destroying the baby, and that's that erythroblastoma fetalis, wherever that is up there. Okay? I can't even see it. It's one of those questions.
Number 8.
Yeah, number 8. Okay? Does everyone see the scenario before we have the cure here? Okay. RH positive mom, never a problem. It has to do with RH negative mom, RH positive baby. Okay? For the first pregnancy, the baby can be born and fine, but any subsequent pregnancy, anti-RH could basically attack the baby. So before this came around, that means there were a lot of basically miscarriages, etc., when this wasn't coming up. Now there's the solution. The solution is. Turn to this card. So ROGAM, basically give it around birth for every pregnancy. Again, I don't have the exact schedule. 2 or 3 shots around birth for every pregnancy, even the first. Because you do not want her to make any antibodies, okay? So if you're RH negative mom, you're gonna get ROGAM, basically, or you better, you should, basically around whatever it is, 2 or 3 shots around birth, so that you are never, basically it swamps up those RH positive cells. The mother doesn't see, and isn't exposed to RH positive cells, does not make antibodies.
So what if the mom gives birth to the baby and so she creates the anti-RH? Can she have a second birth by getting the program, or is it already like?
No.
Okay.
She's got to do, there might be, I don't know I'm not sure what I mean, now that we know this can happen, let's say she had, a bad transfusion and all that, maybe there's something you can do to minimize this problem, but the ROGAM won't help. The ROGAM is swamping up the cells so she doesn't see, her body doesn't see the antibodies. If she's already has antibodies, has memory cells and all that, then she's got the antibodies.
That's essentially all we're having.
Yeah, except, again, there must be, and I just haven't read it, there has to be, now that we know that, some sort of treatment that may prevent those antibodies from hurting the baby as much. I don't know what it is, but no. Yeah, ROGAM, if she's got antibodies, she's in trouble. That's why if she got a bad transfusion or emergency transfusion, because the first time won't be that bad, then I don't know what that person does as far as having a baby, as far as RH positive. And most females and males are RH positive on that side. So, but if you're RH negative mom, again, that is a problem. But it has to be first pregnancy.
But here you're saying it's every pregnancy that the
Yeah.
ROGAM is given.
Because you have to make sure she's never exposed to those cells. Right? The idea is, okay, she got the first pregnancy so she didn't get it, but the idea is, if there's another RH positive baby in there, and doesn't have ROGAM, that when those cells exposed to her, that she'll have developed antibodies. She has to make sure she's never exposed at the time that she would have, actual cell exposure to baby that has RH positive cells. Wait, I think you.
But the second, okay, so once the RH positive baby is born, she gets exposed. And then for the second pregnancy, she will get the ROGAM.
That's
No?
too late.
Oh, it's already too late.
Yeah, because once she's exposed, she's made the antibody. I mean, the idea is, I didn't go to all immunology. I mean, this is the idea, right, why you get vaccines. Once you're exposed, you have a little reaction. Now you have memory cells and you have a massive exposure, you have a massive immune reaction for the next time. You can't, that's just too late.
So your first pregnancy, when they determine your blood type, if you're RH positive,
if you're RH, if your mom is RH negative, if you're RH negative mom, you are gonna get RhoGAM.
But
Okay?
only that one time.
That's where it's.
Every pregnancy. Because, okay, you get it the first time you get it, so you never see, so you don't make the antibodies, even though the baby's out, okay? But the idea then is, you know, the next time you have RH positive baby, if the baby's born, you're gonna be exposed to those cells again. I mean, the RhoGAM doesn't persist in your body, it literally just swamps out the cells that you might be exposed to at that time. So that has to happen every time that basically, that you have a baby. I can't remember if anybody was RH negative here.
I was, but I only remember getting it the first time, not the second time.
Really? Yeah,
I
well,
could have, and I just don't remember.
yeah, I hope so.
Right?
What?
It would be scary to have a third.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, what, are you gonna have any more kids?
No.
Okay. Because it was scary to me too. I was like, well, I wanna make check, you check on that, so. But again, I told you that story too, where someone was a nurse who came to this class and RH negative mom wasn't prescribed RhoGAM, because you know how doctors are. And so that she actually like basically saved that person's life, okay? So that's why nurses are the key, guys, okay? But anyway, so does that make sense now? So you gotta receive it every pregnancy. Again, it could be, okay, well, what if you say, you you come in with this, your husband, and he's RH negative, they aren't gonna take the chance, okay? Like, is that really the baby? I mean, they're not gonna say anything, but I think if you're RH negative mom, you are gonna get it no matter what. Even if your baby was RH negative, they're not gonna really take the chance on it, okay? Unless,
Crazy, because they don't really take the dad's,
yeah.
the dad's blood.
No, because it's like, we're not, because who knows who the dad is for sure. You don't want to take a chance on the baby. I mean, anyway, you're not gonna say that, but in truth, right, you don't wanna do that, okay? I'm not gonna control that, this is not sexual harassment. Anytime I talk, anything like this, I'm like, oh my God, what are you saying? You get the idea, okay?
You got caught on video. Multiple.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, the stuff I could get in all kinds of trouble, all the time. So I'm always waiting to be blackmailed, right, by some student, like, okay, I have you saying this,
Social media now.
But I'm old now, what are you gonna do? Okay, so.
Let's go over the next stuff,
Give
right?
me an
Or else. And believe me, at UCSD, I have like 400 students at a time, and the stuff I say there, because of the chancellor and all these fucks messing up with UCSD, I just, if the chancellor or anybody listens to any of that, whatever, and I actually say, fire, I actually say it to the camera and all this stuff, it's like, once you're 65, it's like, I mean, you talk about this school, UCSD they're screwing these students over like crazy, okay? They are the worst criminals ever, getting all this money in from that, and what they've been doing is just horrible. And so, yeah, I'm pretty vocal about it. I leak things to the paper and all this stuff, and it's like this unknown source. And I mean, one of my quotes is like, if you just let it get away with it, they're going to take more and more. And it was like unknown source. And, anyway, sorry. Okay, are we good on all that? Okay. Are we doing respiratory? What respiratory you want to do? Yes?
Yes.
No?
Please. Yes, please.
Well, it's everything. It's all the problems.
Break it down, please.
Break it down.
Break it down. I can't deal with the water. I have a little 5-year-old. Where is it? Let me see if my wife did call. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
3 missed calls.
Don't even try that with us.
I gotta check this out, hang on. Because we have trauma going on here, so that's holidays, families can be tricky. I got a voicemail and everything. So, take a few minutes. Let me sit down. You can leave if you want. Okay.